Earlier this week, Nintendo decided to host a Nintendo Direct focusing entirely on the Fire Emblem series. That's not much of a surprise given that Fate's Proof that Awakening sales weren't just a fluke and solidified the series as one of Nintendo's top 5 franchises along with Super Mario Bros., Pokemon, The Legend of Zelda, and Animal Crossing. Sorry Metroid, what was a surprise was just how many games the series has in store in the next 2 years alone. Following up on the teaser shown during the Switch's presentation, they showed a brief glimpse as to what Fire Emblem Warriors would play like, which is to say what everyone expected from a Fire Emblem Musou game, although it's a little weird that they didn't show off this gameplay during the Nintendo Switch's presentation. Then again, there's a lot that the Nintendo Switch has yet to detail, but I digress. I've never been particularly interested in the Warriors franchise, but who knows? The last few games benefited from borrowing mechanics from the series whose lessons they're taking advantage of. Maybe they'll import the series of port conversations and have them with various characters from across all the games. It'd be a lot of fun to see, say, Elowood and Roy talk to each other. Maybe bring up the topic of Roy's mother before being interrupted by enemy forces and revealing who it is. Or have I intrigued by Tiki using a stone to transform into a dragon. Just a thought. Speaking of teaser, they announced that a new Fire Emblem game is in the works for the Nintendo Switch, and that's about all they said about it. No concept art, not even a unique logo. It's aiming for a 2018 release, which would make it over a full decade since a non-virtual console Fire Emblem game has hit a home console, as well as the first time that those gorgeous cutscenes aren't undermined by the horrendously low-resolution screen that they're currently displayed on. On the subject of visually lacking, the Fire Emblem mobile game was revealed to be Fire Emblem Heroes, which looks aesthetically appalling, but here's hoping the overall game is, but what's that? It's a gacha game? We'll see how it goes. 2017 is already shaping up to be a pretty abysmal year, so I'm trying to be optimistic. Seriously, why didn't you just make it a card game? Most surprising of all was the announcement for a third Fire Emblem game coming to the 3DS later this year, and a remake at that. Specifically, the classic Fire Emblem Gaiden for the Famicom would be given new life in the form of Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, with accompanying amiibos for Alma and Celica. As an aside, where exactly is Corrin's amiibo? That one was supposed to come out last year, but now it's, you know what, forget it. This was unexpected to say the least. While Gaiden might be one of the most influential entries in the series, being the first to utilize a map that can be freely explored, and multiple options for promoting character classes, not to mention boasting separate campaigns, it's nowhere near as popular as other Japanese-only entries like Seisei no Keifu, in part because of the time period it was made in. During the late 80s and early 90s, it was commonplace for the NES, or in this case the Famicom, to feature sequels to popular titles that were radically different in terms of gameplay, to the point where many of them play like they don't belong in the same series. Gaiden is no exception to what has been dubbed the Black Sheep NES sequel, featuring a lot of experimental design that, while fascinating in retrospect, might alienate newcomers whose exposure to the older games is limited to playing as Marth in Super Smash Bros. While mechanics and traits like feeding your troops appear to be brought over to Shadows of Valentia, Intelligence Systems has claimed that everything that made Gaiden what it was will be left intact, preserving the dual campaign of Alma and Celica, along with, presumably, the absolutely ludicrous magic system where you learn spells by leveling up, and cast them by reducing your health. Sticking as close as possible to the original while improving upon its flaws is a good step towards preventing the original's unique design decision from being an obstacle to fans of the more recent entries, while simultaneously keeping the appeal of the original. It's one of the reasons why Metroid Zero Mission remains the high mark for all remakes to be measured against. That said, there is one part which is a little bit worrisome. The story. Namely that the trailer for Echoes appears to show that there is one. The original Gaiden was many things, but as far as narrative is concerned, it's the trying to find a vein to hit of Fire Emblem games. With the plot so thinly spread, it's a surprise whenever any dialogue crops up. Fleshing out the story and characters in and of itself is a good idea, given how little substance there is to the original, which does seem to be the case with the parallel between Mila and Duma's deteriorating relationship, and Alma and Celica's promise to keep theirs strong, particularly making for a more personal tale than we've seen in the past few entries. On the other hand, those past several entries in the series were not strong in the writing front, so there's a bit of a cause for concern, especially since we don't know who's writing this. Potential problems with the writing aside, Shadows of Valentia is looking to be a solid setup for the system that helped bring back Fire Emblem to prominence, and allow one of the more unappreciated entries in the series to be given a second chance. Who knows, maybe if this does well enough, we'll see the same level of experimentation in future entries, rather than safely sticking to the same base they've been using since Shadow Dragon, or, barring that, perhaps we'll see more of these echoes of the series past? I mean, if we won't be getting, say, a collection of the older games that officially localizes them and brings them over to North America, Europe, and elsewhere, remaking the 3rd through 6 games, and also BS Fire Emblem. Yes, there was a game in the series called BS Fire Emblem, laugh it up. Under the Echoes line is a solid consolation prize and a worthwhile way to tie things over between the next few major installments. Some might be complaining that the series is starting to get a little overexposed given how many games we're getting in the span of 2 years. That's understandable, even if I don't agree with that logic. Recall that it wasn't too long ago when the series was in dire straits. After Radiant Dawn bombed on the Wii, Intelligent Systems was struggling to figure out what to do with the franchise, which led to a cancelled JRPG game and the DS remakes of Marth's Adventures, the latter of which was never even released in North America. The franchise was in such an abysmal state that it was on the verge of being abandoned if Awakening didn't do well. Knowing how poor a state the series was in at the time, it really is amazing to see how quickly the series has recovered. Now? Let's just remake Gaiden for a lark. That makes me quite happy. That's all for now, folks. Until next time, game on, my friends.